So, as predicted, Sparkle Socks is going after even more of our guns. Here's what Trudeau said before he was Prime Minister.
Fear in here is that the first step towards registering your guns is just the first step towards taking away guns from everyone. That's never going to happen because here in Canada we have a culture that has grown up with guns and that respects the need to go out into the wilderness and shoot things from time to time. It's part of our identity.
And now he wants to freeze all sales and transfers of handguns. Handguns have been in Canada since handguns existed. I own a handgun, and I joined the tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of Canadians who went and purchased even more handguns in the last 48 hours. Since Trudeau's announcement, gun shops across the country have done more business in 2 days than they have in 2 years. Almost all of them are completely sold out of handguns, coast to coast. There are now waiting lists and people are waiting for their transfers. It is unprecedented. The same thing happened south of the border back when Obama threatened the assault-style rifle ban, which we're also dealing with here in Canada. Like my rifles right there and my shotgun up there. They're painted black. They're modern sporting rifles and a modern black shotgun. So politicians and ignorant people like the media will call them assault style, whatever that means. It just means they're styled a certain way. It doesn't mean they're more powerful than any other firearm. You just got to love how media is just like the COVID thing. They spread so much misinformation and they rile people up and they get people stuck on these terms and politicians use it against us. Assault style. Styling is irrelevant. Styling has nothing to do with capability. An AR-15, for example, is a low-powered gopher gun compared to most hunting rifles that you buy off the shelf. But it looks scary and it's popular because lots of manufacturers make one and all the parts are interchangeable, so it's just the Honda Civic of rifles. It's not particularly powerful compared to other rifles, but a lot of people have them. So they're more likely to pop up in illegal situations simply because there's more of them. So going after a firearm like the AR-15 is about as logical as going after Ford F-150 pickup trucks because they're the most popular vehicle. They're the most common vehicle on the road, so therefore they are involved in more vehicle thefts and probably more drunk driving incidences as well. So if we just ban the F-150s, we'll have no more car thefts. That's the logic of gun grabbers when they go after things like AR-15s just because it's a popular rifle that almost everyone has. But I digress. Now he wants to go after handguns. So I went and bought 2 more handguns like every true patriotic Canadian has been doing the last 2 days, everyone who has their firearms license. And we're up against a tide of misinformation, mostly spread by the Liberals, as usual, and the media. I even had somebody comment on one of my YouTube community posts, says, I feel, directly to me, she says that she would feel threatened by me because I own an item that could take someone's life in an instant. And that's, it's sad that anyone thinks that way. I mean, for me, when I meet a fellow legal gun owner who has their firearms license, I feel safe. I'm much safer than someone who doesn't have a firearms license, whether they own a gun or not. Here's the facts. And this is directly from Statistics Canada, government agency of all things. If you have your restricted firearms license here in Canada, which means that you can own a handgun, okay, which I have, obviously, because I just went and bought 2 more handguns. If you have that license in your wallet, you are 3 times, on average, 3 times less likely to ever commit murder in your lifetime with one of your restricted firearms compared to a regular non-gun owning Canadian. Non-gun owners are more likely to kill somebody in their lifetime even if they don't own a gun, because most murders are not caused by firearms. And those that are overwhelmingly illegal firearms, smuggled firearms, gang activity, not even mass shootings, not even in the States. Mass shootings are a very small amount of annual gun crime, but they're the ones that get all the attention. They ignore all the gangbangers shooting every day. Vancouver, Surrey, Toronto, there are shootings almost every day. You can buy a handgun out of the trunk of a car. It's easier to get a gun if you're a criminal. By far, it's easier. And those are the ones causing problems. But then politicians come down on people like me, who wouldn't hurt a fly with my firearms.
Public Safety Canada says legally owned guns, including handguns, are not used in the vast majority of gun crimes in Canada, which you have alluded to. So I wonder what difference this national freeze, particularly on sales and transfers, will actually make to people who are already not playing by the rules.
We have seen far too many tragedies across this country, far too many incidents of gun violence, particularly with handguns, in our streets, in our communities, devastating families, devastating communities from coast to coast to coast, having an extremely high impact of femicide, of gender-based violence, and that's why we're taking action. As of the passage of this legislation, which we hope parties in this House will agree to fast-track, it will be illegal to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns into this country. We are capping the number of handguns in this country and giving police and border agents more tools to crack down on the illegal importation, theft, and straw purchases of handguns.
Yeah, so I typically work in the prairies, and I expect many legal gun owners there are going to say that this legislation is too far-reaching, that it punishes them, that it goes too far generally. How do you respond to them?
People should have the freedom in this country to go to a supermarket, go to a birthday party, walk down the street, play in their yards, gather with families for a picnic without being worried about gun violence. And unfortunately, the reality is, in our country, it is getting worse and has been getting worse over the past years. We need only look south of the border to know that if we do not take action firmly and rapidly, it gets worse and worse and more difficult to counter. That's why, as of this moment, or as of the passage of this legislation, it will be illegal to buy, sell, import, or transfer handguns in this country.
Gun shops all over the country are giving Trudeau the award of Best Handgun Salesman in Canadian history, and it's well deserved. I'd like to thank you personally, Mr. Trudeau. Yep, I'd like to thank you for giving me the kick in the ass I needed to go buy that revolver I wanted. You're the best. Now, this fight is happening both sides of the border. It's been happening in other countries. And one of the reasons so many people in Canada and the USA are very adamant about fighting against what's happening with this subject is we don't want to become the next Australia. We don't want to become the next UK. We don't want to become the next New Zealand. Hell, I don't even want Canada to become the next California, among other states, which are already horrendously strict. And some of my rifles that I own now, even my short barrel shotgun, will get me in trouble in several US states. But for now, they're okay in Canada. But this is how they do it, incrementally, one little thing at a time. And politicians in the USA, along with a big swath of the general public south of the border, are demanding more gun control. Don't be complicit. Don't think a piece of paper or some declaration of rights is going to stop this. You know, the right to arms existed in Canada 100 years before the Second Amendment in the USA even came into existence. All right? The right to arms comes from the Magna Carta from 1534. Look up your history. Guess what? The Second Amendment comes from that right as well. You don't need an amendment. You already had the same right to arms. The amendment just reaffirms a right You already have, whether or not that amendment even exists. The problem is whether current governments recognize or respect those inherent rights. And as we can see all around the world, including in the United States, many governments and politicians do not respect those rights. They don't want you to have them. And they don't care. And now you have citizens fighting against your rights as well, thanks to the media indoctrination, the misinformation, and so on. So what do we got? We got a whole bunch of new handgun owners in Canada. Lots of us already had handguns. A lot of other ones simply had the license and didn't have a handgun until now. We might get to keep them for our lifetimes, but our kids won't get them. The sport will die off. Competition shooting, IPSC, all the way up to the Olympics. New athletes it's just going to disappear. It's going to devastate the industry, businesses, mom and pop shops, you name it. And it's a concerted effort. And of course, all under the guise of safety. Anytime a government says for your safety, the hairs on the back of your neck should be raised straight up, because it's not about your safety, never was. If they cared about safety, they would mandate that every able Canadian citizen sign up to get their firearms license, because then they would have to be safety trained, background checked, and vetted. Every 24 hours we get a background check if we hold a firearms license. Even pedophiles don't have that. They don't get background checks every 24 hours. So if it was about safety, more people should be getting their gun license and buying firearms. That's common sense. But of course, this is the government we're talking about. Common sense is not in their vocabulary. And no matter where you are in the world right now watching this, this isn't just about firearms. This is about private property rights. If the government can come in and say, you can't have that anymore, we're taking it away from you, they can do it for anything. You might not care because you're not a gun owner. How about when they come and take your SUV away from you in the name of climate change or something like that? If we allow government to have this kind of complete totalitarian overreach, it's not going to end. It is a huge red flag. Be vigilant. Pay attention to what's going on, whether you're a gun owner or not. It's very dangerous when a government tries to force you to hand over your privately owned purchased property, no matter what it is, in the name of safety, which is completely false and flies in the face of all the data, science, and statistics out there. It's completely false. So it's a nonsensical argument in the first place. Even if it was about safety, I still don't believe government should have that ability. It's your property. You bought it. You paid for it. End of discussion. Imagine if they did apply this to all the other devices used for mass casualties, like the guy who drove the truck into it killed 86 people in France with a truck within seconds. So imagine the government comes around and says, sorry, you can't have your vehicles anymore because of that. Of course not. They blame that on mental illness. But if the guy was holding a gun, they'll blame the gun instead. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But Justin, it's so much more dangerous in the US. I mean, Canada, they're doing the right thing. The US should do that too. Huh? You know that New Hampshire, US state, everyone carries in New Hampshire. They give Canadians carry permits there. All I have to do is show them my Canadian firearms license. They give me one there. And New Hampshire is safer than Canada. Boy, I wonder why that is. Maybe criminals don't really want to hang around in a state where pretty much every single household has firearms and people are carrying. It's a very, very polite place. Gun grabbers hate to hear that, but then you go to a place like Chicago, or California even, with crazy strict gun laws, and their gun crime is out of control because criminals love it there, because no gun laws ever affect criminals.